to welcome those who could make it today. I know the weather's not the greatest and all that, but we're glad to have people here. I'm going to introduce myself because of today's speaker and because of the topic, and not as Tom Garza, but as Tomas Garza, because I'm actually the object of your talk today. I'm the director of the Texas Language Center, and I'm delighted as always, to be doing our Language Matters series, because this is our one chance we get every month to bring some of our most talented faculty members who are doing innovative, creative things in our classrooms to meet with other instructors, either live or via the internet when we put these online. I want just to remind everyone that there is a copy of the Texas Language Center newsletter, a brand new newsletter that has our calendar of events, and also to go to our website to see any updates on the calendar of events. They're all listed there. My great pleasure to introduce my colleague and friend, Delia Montesinos, Dr. Montesinos, who's been at the University of Texas now, in a sense, in all capacities in our Language Center. A brief biography on her life and work, because they fused together here at UT beautifully. Born on the Mexico-US border, Delia Montesinos attended public schools in Brownsville, Texas. She received her BA with a major in Spanish from Trinity University in San Antonio, and then lived in Valencia and Castellón, Spain for 16 years, which is where she gets that beautiful pronunciation that she has, and returned to the United States in 1981. She received in 2000 her PhD in Spanish literature here at UT Austin, where she's currently a senior lecturer in our Department of Spanish and Portuguese. While she was in Brownsville during her tenure as a high school student, Dr. Montesinos became very involved in the Advanced Placement Language Test and Literature program, and has been a member of the AP Spanish Test Development Committee, was a member between 1994 and 98, where she was a reader, question leader, and exam leader for AP Spanish Literature and Exam. She's also been a member of the Curriculum Development and Assessment Committee for the AP Spanish Literature and Culture course, and is currently co-chair of the Development Committee. Today's talk is in reference to her most recent endeavors and work in our Department of Spanish and Portuguese, where she has been a crucial member of the development of courses designed specifically for people como nosotros, the heritage speaker of Spanish. Today's talk, entitled Creating Innovative Activities that Target Spanish Heritage Language Needs, is designed to share activities that will be developed to encourage heritage language speakers and learners to question, probe, inquire, and reflect on their underlying knowledge of grammar to attain a deeper and more meaningful understanding of their heritage language inductively. It is my great pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Delia Montesinos.
Thank you very much. Like Dr. Garza said, I will be dealing with the Spanish heritage learners' needs, and I am focusing mainly on our department, the needs I see in our heritage speakers here, but they aren't that different from what I saw when I was teaching in Brownsville with the heritage learners there. I do know the question came up the other day as one of the students said, well, will it make it better if I know all of these things? Will I speak better? And I said, no. I said, because look at your last name, like mine. Montesinos es un poco más raro, but Mendez. They're going to expect you to know everything about Spanish. And besides that, the other thing I told them, once you get hooked on this, you're going to become a major or a minor at least. And it's true. They start to question, they start to see something else besides just their informal speech for communication. They start seeing that there's more value to the language. So once again, basically I'm looking at things that I've been creating this past semester that I am creating right now, and the Texas Language Center helped me with a grant for it, to create activities that go beyond what I generally would find in the textbooks. There are excellent textbooks out there, there are very good things out there, but they aren't addressing, or they don't address, what I think is necessary for our students. It's too much of taking the idea of how we teach Spanish as a second language and then just applying it to heritage learners with more culture included, more things included, some things corrective, but I didn't see that as the need for our bilingual students. I have to see that too often our use of Spanish is undervalued. And so we have to tell them, all right, so you're using asina, let's see why. So you say tomastes. Let's see why. And rather than knocking them down and telling them this is wrong, you have to do this, let's see why, and then they can start appreciating where that all came from. So the other thing that I have to do, or that I'm trying to do in these activities also, is mix in activities that will reinforce the constant reinforcement of what they're doing. It's not just presenting one time, but bringing it back. And I hope with the things I'm bringing up, you will sort of see where I'm going. Okay, the purpose of my activities, like Dr. Garza says, is to encourage the Spanish speakers, the heritage speakers, to question, probe, inquire, and reflect. So I'm looking for that throughout the activities I'm creating. I don't want to just present material that is there, and here it is, and then go on, and that's where the inductive part of it comes in. I want to guide them to attain a deeper understanding of what they're doing. Why are you doing this? Why do you use this? Why do we use this? To nurture an appreciation for the language, whether they use, whether it is the standard academic language or not, but to understand and value what they have, and to prompt an awareness of registers. So then they will see, okay, fine, so you're using tomastes, and you can use it with your family, but if you have to go to an interview, or you're speaking with someone else more formally, are you going to use that or not? So I want them to start understanding what they are speaking is not wrong. What they have learned in the family grouping is not wrong. It is part of communication, but we have to see when we can use one thing or the other. Okay. So the first thing I start with, because the materials I'm developing, I'm basically putting them in 4 chapters that we're working on. And the first one is dealing with ¿Cómo me considero? So it's just taking some questions. Me parece que he vivido 2 infancias, because I want them to understand who they are. I've lived 2 childhoods. We all did as bilinguals. Many of us, when you walked in the door, it was all Spanish. You walked out the door, you could use your English. But we've lived two childhoods, and we've lived an Anglo childhood, and we've lived a Mexican or a Honduran or Hispanic childhood also. And this is just for them to start thinking. This is how I start getting them. In this class, we're going to think. So they give their opinion, and they ask other students about their opinion, so they can see that they're divergent ideas. Según si están en español o inglés, siento diferentes emociones. How do I feel? Do I feel the same? Whether I'm hearing someone speaking in English and talking about something, or even using words in English, do I have that same reaction in English or in Spanish? I look as if I see the world from 2 different perspectives, and that is true. We see it, depending where we are, we see it from different perspectives. That's one of the things I always tell my bilingual students. We live the better of 2 worlds. We have that combination. When I speak Spanish, I feel different than when I speak English. And you'll see that very often they do. They feel different when they're in one language or the other. And unfortunately, sometimes when they're in English, they feel less confident than when they're in Spanish. I understand and I share the social Anglo norms, and I understand and I share the Hispanic norms. Now, they don't have to say yes or no. They're thinking about themselves. They're going into. Because eventually, with the other question, it comes to, this is my self-perspective of being a bilingual. I want them to understand being a bilingual is being more than just speaking 2 languages. Okay. And then the other question, this is a major question. If I already speak it, why do I have to study Spanish? And of course, our easy question is, you speak English and you've had to study it since 1st grade, right? But that really doesn't get them to where they need to go. So it's being very honest with themselves. It's a prerequisite. I mean, it's one of the requirements for graduation. I want to know more about the language. I want to get an easy A, and I always tell them the easy A often becomes the easy C or D. Okay. The other one is my boyfriend or my girlfriend or my partner speaks Spanish really well, and I want to be able to do the same thing. And then I also want, and this is another one, I want to show my relatives, especially my relatives who are in Latin America, that I can speak Spanish, that I'm not a pocho. Okay? And sometimes, and this often comes to, sometimes I'm embarrassed when I speak Spanish. and I want to fix that. And then the other one is, since I'm Hispanic, and this is true, everybody thinks I know everything about the language and can speak it beautifully and write it beautifully also. Okay. So that was one of the things I used, and that we're going to also see why I started with these interviews, because I'm trying to link everything as we're going. When we come to the end of each chapter, there's something called En la Comunidad. And this was one which was interviews. They had done an interview with me already at the very beginning, and collection of data. So what they do is, the first one they're going to do, and that they did, and I was amazed at what they did. They were in groups, and they went out to the community. They chose a subject. They went out, and many of them came here to the union, to where there were people that they heard speaking Spanish. So in class before, they had, as a group, each little group come up with questions that they were going to use. They went, they interviewed people, they collected the data, they analyzed the data, and then they gave me a report. So I gave them very specific steps for doing this. I find that that's the easiest way to do things. You're very specific, they know what you're expecting, where you're going as they're going along. And then I gave them examples, and this is not anything that's new. So what I am doing is sort of taking things that I have learned and flipping them around to what I need. I need these students to be able to write. But I don't want to just tell them, write a paragraph. Because some of them come with stronger English skills from their high schools, others come with weaker skills. So I want to, in a way, help them through that. So this is something I learned here at Writing Across the Curriculum that we have here at UT, which was you give samples of a writing. And this, of course, would be the report of an interview. This way they know what it would be like. And you give them, well, this is something I added on my own. I gave them the elements of an interview, of the report of an interview, so that they would have it right there. And then you give them a first sample, and you take that sample and intentionally you remove things, so that then the students have to come back, and we're working together, we're working as a group, as the whole class with the first one, and they come back and they start seeing, okay, which elements are there and which ones aren't. And they come down, and right here it says, write down the elements that were missing. What does this do? It also already gives them an idea of vocabulary to use in their report, because they're seeing it here, this is a report. And it's also building vocabulary. These students don't have to build vocabulary with vocabulary lists. They have to build their vocabulary through reading, because that's where it makes more sense to them. Okay, so we go as a class through this whole one. Then we break up into smaller groups. And here's the same report on the interview, but now it has a little bit more elaboration. There's more to it. So then they go through, once again, they're looking for all the elements on it. So I'm not telling them it has to have this, that. They're looking, is this there? I did tell them this is there, but is it there? And then they come back, and then they say, compare this version B with version A. What things are included here that version A did not have? And then also, but what is it still lacking? So then they're working through it. Okay? Then we go to version C. Okay? And I always tell them, this is not the perfect one. I don't want them to take this and just copy it. I always tell them, this is not perfect, but it is a much better than version A and better than version B. So this, they're already just working in pairs. They're working on it, because each time they're starting to be more responsible for what they are doing. They can't just sit there and let somebody else tell them, oh, this one or that one, like they can in a little bit larger group. Now they're in pairs. So they go through, they find the elements, they find if there's an element that might be missing, and they also have to decide, why is this a better element? Once again, I got this from Writing Across the Curriculum. I just changed it around so that it would work for what I did, and it has worked really, really well. All right. Then, what else? I give them, we go back. I take that last one, break it up for them to sort of give them an idea of what they're going to be writing, but rather than just introducing interrogative words, as they're preparing their questions, they're going to have to use the interrogative words within context. So it's much more meaningful than saying cuál, quién, dónde, cuándo. Those are words they're going to use. And at the same time, one of our cocos that we always say in Spanish son los acentos, the accents, eh? Because, I mean, I can give you a whole text without accents, and a heritage learner can read it beautifully with the correct intonation, except maybe one or two that might be off. We can read it. So they don't see the reason for it. So this is a way to introduce it. So they write it. They have some things, questions, and then they start writing questions using ¿cuál es la edad? ¿Cuántos años tiene usted aquí? O lo que sea. And I also tell them, if you're going to be dealing with an older person, you're going to use the usted register. If you're going to be dealing with students in your age, you'll use the tú. But you might also, since you don't know them, you might want to consider if you should do tú and usted. So all of a sudden they're practicing using registers. It's not just, this is what usted is, this is what tú is. No, and they have to make the decision. I don't tell them what to use. They have to make the decision, because when they go out in the real world, they are going to have to make the decision of what they use. Okay? Then, typical thing, when you have group projects, and this is all, I've always hated this, there will always be slackers, or there will tend to be slackers. I won't say there will always be slackers. So one of the things that's part of the grade is that each person is going to evaluate the other members of the group that was working with them on creating the interview, of carrying it out, because they put everything on a spreadsheet for me. And to be honest, this was the first time I learned the word for spreadsheet in Spanish, la hoja de cálculo. I didn't even know what it was, because we always say la hoja Excel, or, you know, en los datos. But so I learned it. So I learned things from the students. So they evaluate each one, their participation in organizing the project, and we did work in class on it, especially this first one, in writing the questions and carrying out the interview and collecting the data. And then they write commentaries. And I want them to write commentaries, and I say, you can't give it to me without commentaries. You have to tell me why this person was good or why this person was not good, okay? And then in their participation in writing the rough draft, and then in editing the report, and overall, what was this person's participation like? But all of them have to have comments. And those are turned in just to me. I don't give them back to the students. You might say, okay, but they know each other, so they're going to give each other hundreds. Not really. They're very honest about it, because it bothers them. And I tell them, if it bothers you that this person didn't do it, their share, don't give them a good grade. This is the only way that you can teach this person that they're forming a group, they have to participate. Okay, now before I mention the accents, and I can assure you that it will take me half, 1/3, a quarter, a tenth of the time to teach an English speaker how to place accents than to teach a heritage speaker. Okay? And you're laughing because you're probably saying, yeah. So this is a little bit of TPR without being TPR getting up all over the room, in which all of a sudden I give them nonsensical words, just ta-ta. And so we start saying, okay, look at word stress and how we use it. Ta-ta, ta-ta-ta, ta-ta-ta-ta, and then ta-ta-ta, and all of a sudden then I can tell them, you know, these words are aguda, llana, y estrújula. And I know a lot of people say, students don't need terminology. They'll need it in my literature class when they come in, because that's how we talk about poetry. We talk about verso agudo, verso estrújulo. We talk about it that way. So I tell them, you know, you'll need it later on. Besides, you know, I come back to my personal experience. I got my master's in Spanish at Trinity. I was not going to be a teacher. I got my master's in Spanish in Trinity because study abroad was the only place I could go to, Germany or Spain. And so I didn't speak German, so I went to Spain. And then I ended up being a teacher, and I love it. I love it. So I always tell you, you never know where you're going to end up. So you have to learn all of this. And so they start with this, and then I move it on. Okay, tu nombre de pila, your first name. ¿Qué es? Agudo, estrújulo, o llano? And so then they start thinking about it. ¿Y tu apellido? Did you write an accent in your last name? No, what's your last name? Ramirez. I said, no, it's Ramirez. No, it's Ramirez. I said, without the accent, it's Ramirez. So I tried to personalize as many things so that then they will apply them to themselves. If they end up with a name like Juan Bosco, that doesn't have a written accent, I tell them, okay, go on to another family member, okay, and try to figure it out. And then one thing that I added each time, and it's almost, I don't want to say ad nauseum, but these things have to be drilled into these students because they know it, they just have to have it visually there. So I add these sections which are called sintetizar. And all that they do is after each little section or after an important point, they synthesize. So now they're having to go in and put it all together and in their mind bringing it all together. I don't want them to sit there and memorize rules, no. Rules, we forget. But if they internalize, they synthesize, they bring it all together, it will stay with them. And I'm very happy to say that their accents are really working well in the class. Okay, but you can't just leave it there. After the synthesis, we start applying. So then what I did was I took the first part and I gave them the word and I told them it was Yana. And now it's divided into syllables because that is very easy for all of us. I didn't spend time saying, okay, these are the rules for syllables because it's a syllabic language. So then I tell them the classification and then they have to go and underline the stressed syllable based on the classification alone. Just because right now we were just working on they're getting the feeling of what's aguda, llana, y estructura. Okay? Then they flip out. I give them the activity with the stressed syllable underlined. And now they have to start classifying. What is it of the three? Which one is it? So they're doing it both ways. It's starting to go in. And then afterwards, then I ask them, give me examples of 4 words which are aguda, which 4 words which are grave, or llana. I tend to use llana more because I use that in poetry, with 4 words are estructura. So now they're applying. I'm not giving them the words. They have to start thinking. And generally, I let them do these in groups so that they can help each other out, and they can discuss, and they will discuss. No, esa no es. Sí, sí es por esto. So they will discuss, and that's what has to be there. It has to be active. It has to be alive. Okay? And then afterwards, we go on. So I'm moving them along, and yes, the steps are there. I'm trying to figure out, when I'm writing these activities, I'm trying to think every step that could fit in, wherever a question could come up to address it some way. So then the next activity I give them from a reading that we will do a little bit later. And this is about Gregorio Cortes. So I give them a short reading and words are underlined. And then they have to go in and you're going to see that I made up an author for this. It's from someone writing about the Gregorio Cortes because I couldn't find it. Words that ended with a stressed U. So if somebody's name is Bernabé, Alcalá is Tambrú, because I couldn't get words to fit in that for it. So then I underline, and then they have to come in and they classify. So they're seeing the ones that, now they're seeing the ones that have accents and don't have accents. They hadn't really studied the accents yet. They've only been stressing, they've only been dealing with stress. But now all of a sudden, they're pronouncing the words and they're starting to put in the accent. And from this, then, and I'm sort of going, there's a lot I want to show you all, so I'm sort of going fast. Then they start creating their own reasons. Why does this word need an accent? Well, look at the last letter. So that's where I had a hard time trying to find something that would match up everything that I needed. But now they are inductively going in. They are applying what they heard about sound to, yes, esta es llana, but it has a written accent. Why? So then they are trying to figure it out on themselves. That's why I'm saying they need to probe, they need to inquire. That is what will make it meaningful for them, not a set of rules that they follow. Okay? Another thing, and this is dealing with one of our other problems, is spelling. Okay? In spelling, nosotros, we pronounce caso and caso exactly the same. And one is with a Z and one with an S. But you go to Peninsular, the majority of them are from the Andalusian area, and even so, and they'll say cazo y caso. So it's very clear to them, but not for us. So besides accent, orthography is one of the big things. And when I started creating all these activities, I have to go back. Not only from my experience, I went and talked to other faculty members. I said, what are you seeing that's one of the biggest problems of our heritage speakers? Orthography was there, accents were there. Vocabulary really wasn't there. It could have been stronger, but it wasn't a big thing. But these were some of the big things. So, before we even go into orthography, I give them a word search. There has to be some fun in the course. And so I give them a list of the words that they're going to use. So you're going to see recién. I pronounce it recién, but it could be with an S or a C. But I give them the word already so that they'll start looking for it. And as they're looking for the word, now they're realizing recién es con S, con C, no con S. Relación is with a C. So it makes it a little bit fun, but they still don't know they're working on spelling. This is just a preliminary activity that we're doing that sort of breaks the monotony of the course. Okay? But once they have done that little word search, then I give them, an ad that was heard on the radio. Okay? And somebody transcribed it. And so I tell them there are 10 mistakes in using the C, S, or Z. This is from a section that we have on the second chapter, which is about the media. So then they have to come through, and intentionally, I use words with S, I use words which are misspelled, so that it's not just find the mistakes, but they have to start thinking, cochecito. What did I do in the word search? And they go back to it. And it's not the word cochecito might not be there, but there would be something else. So now they're linking what they have done and applying it. You see what I'm trying to tell you? Don't just give them rules. Make them inductively get to the reason. Okay? And then of course we bring it up, and the discussions are very good in class. I didn't expect the type of discussions. They'll come up, they'll ask questions, they aren't embarrassed. And I always tell them, there's not a wrong question in this class, and there are no stupid questions. And I won't mind explaining as many times of us as I have to. So they'll come up, and then I'll tell them, well, okay, tú dices cochecito con Z. A ver, Pablo, ¿tú estás de acuerdo? So rather than my saying, no, it's wrong, I ask another student for their opinion. What do you think? Well, I don't know. Vamos a ver, clase, what do we think? Is it right or wrong? And let's start reasoning. Why? And they'll go back and they'll say, well, I saw this other word with a C-I-T-O, and I said, was it a diminutive also? See? So what's that telling you? Yeah, cochecito should be with a C, not with a Z. So it's thinking. Main thing, that's thinking. Okay, now, then we actually come to the section in the chapter on the orthography on the C, S, and Z. And this was fun for them. I didn't know. It was the first time I was trying something like this. I didn't know how it would work, but it was fun. So we have a list of words, and we have casa, casa, the way I would say colocación. I tell them, no. Vamos a ser españoles. Vamos a ser peninsulares. Me van a sacar la lengua. And that makes it more fun than just saying the theta. Y digo, me van a sacar la lengua. Y vamos a pronunciarlo. Casa, casa. And it's very hard for them at first, so we go back over it. So they start with casa and casa. And then they start seeing a difference in sound that they now can relate to a visual impression. Where did I get this? Well, like Tom said, I was in Spain for a long time, and I remember my oldest daughter, when she went off to school for the first time, not long after that, the nuns called me in. And I said, my goodness, she's a little girl. I don't know why they're calling me in. So I went there, and I just started speaking, and the nun told me, ya sé. I know why that little girl speaks like that. She said, you've got to talk to her, because she was mixing her se and zeta and everything. She had a mixture from me, from being there in Spain, from her father and the family. It was a mix. She said, you've got to speak with la, for spelling reasons, with la fe y la zeta. It was very difficult for me to make that changeover. But I did it because of them. And then I realized if they were saying it, maybe I could apply it here. So this was a fun activity, and they enjoyed it. So then, to make things, I tried to introduce little writings that I make up to try to put into them. And this is one that's called Un quebradero de cabeza, o se escribe cabeza. So it's sort of getting the feeling of what they look at, how they feel. And it's just about somebody that's talking that she saw, because we see it on the ads on TV, that their words, they aren't very well spelled sometimes, but we aren't sure. So it's someone who looks at the ad, isn't quite sure if the word is spelled correctly or not, doesn't have time to check it, and asks her roommate, who is española. And of course, si era cabeza o o qué era. And so her roommate says, well, it's not with a C or a Z, because the word, it's cruce. I'm sorry, yeah, I was thinking of our shuttles, no cruce with a C, with a Z, but it should be cruce with a C. So she said, I know it should be one or the other because it's a cruce. Y cruce sería con C o Z. And the woman says, well, I still don't remember, I'm not quite sure. And then she remembers, she said, all of a sudden my high school teacher came back to me. And I can see her telling me, jamás, jamás, never, never, a ZE or a ZI except in proper nouns, never. So then it's sort of making it fun, but it brings the message across to them. And then later on, when we look at the orthography again, I will put a big thing, jamás, jamás, and I can tell the students, jamás, jamás, they'll say, jamás, jamás, Z-E, ni Z-I. It's just there, but they can apply it afterwards. So then I gave them a list of words, and we started pronunciándolos como españoles. Okay? And then we went to pronunciándolos como nosotros. So they're seeing both. They're getting a cultural lesson along the way, and it's helping their spelling. Okay. And then another thing that I do, this is sort of more rote, the first one that I thought could help, in which I give them a sample word, and then they look at other words and put them in, because of the ending. But then on this one, use your English. There's lots of things in English that we can use too for our spelling, especially in Spanish. And so that's another thing that we're doing. If I say ascend, A-S-C-E-N-D, how am I going to spell it in Spanish? And that's hard for them. Ascender, ascender. And it's trabalenguas. But I looked at words like that, particularly to make it more interesting in class. So then all of a sudden I tell them, use your English. And I always tell them, when you go for your GREs, use your Spanish, because it's going to help you so much in the vocabulary words so often. So this is telling them, okay, you've got two worlds. Make the best of both. Don't isolate them. Bring them together, because that is our reality. We are bilingual. Okay. And then I have another section which is called Entre Dos Lenguas. And that's what we are. We live in a world of two languages, entre dos lenguas. So I give them a crossword puzzle, and some of the words are in English, and some of the words are in Spanish. So if it's there in English, they have to write in Spanish. If it's in Spanish, they write it in English. And once again, I'm targeting mistakes that I know will be coming up. Let's say when we're in the preterite, tendency to say dijeron o trajeron. So I will put down, they brought. And if they want to write dijeron o trajeron, or they said, it's not going to fit. So something is wrong. And then they have to go back and reason what is not right about it. Okay. Then another thing, while we're talking about languages, and this is for the chapter I'm writing right now, and this third chapter is about our heritage, both our indigenous heritage, our European and Moorish heritage, and then our African heritage. So it's Asia and Africa. So we're looking at three things, because very often we don't stop to think. There's so much in our heritage. And so it's just a little bit about el arte de la lengua. And then I give them a series of words in Nahuatl. And this way they try to figure out what the word is in Spanish. So once again, they're reasoning. Do you see how I'm trying to make them all the time to be not just regurgitating, but trying to figure out things? So they have like chapulín. What is the word? Chapulín. and then they write it, and I tell them, check your spelling. Sí, ¿qué tipo de palabra es? I always bring back, pues es aguda. Necesita, sí, necesita acento, eh? So they're always coming back. And then, besides that, all of a sudden we have guaxolotl. And then, guaxolotl? Guajolote, eh? So it makes it fun, but they're also learning. There's a language out there called Nahuatl that's still being used. Eh? And this is where a lot of our words are coming from. That's why we don't say el pavo del Día de Acción de Gracia, sino el guajolote. Eh? But maybe somebody else, if I would go to Spain, I would tell them, voy a cocinar guajolote. They'd look at me and say, what is this woman talking about? So we're bringing it in the cultural part of it, but they're appreciating where our language is coming, why I speak a little bit differently. Okay? And then also, sort of along the lines of, like I said, I talked to faculty who were in the upper division courses. I've taught advanced grammar and composition often, but I think I only did a linguistics course one time as sort of a fill-in, but it's fun. I like languages. I just like languages, period. And one of them mentioned, they really like phonetic transcription. She could see it in the heritage speakers she had. They like phonetic transcription. So I brought it. We're dealing now with bringing in different things. This is the God, Ka, He, and so forth, but it's also the use of the X a great deal, which we're looking at in this whole section. So we come to a word like xenophobia. They're going to be writing it. They're going to write it with an S, but then they're going to see xilófono, because I give them some words. I give them some answers, so that then they have to go back to that answer and try to apply it to something else. Si es xilófono, and that xilófono is like S-I fonéticamente, entonces xenophobia is probably also written with an X, E. So do you see where I'm going with all these activities? It's not just the answers there. It's figure out, put together, manipulate it so that you can work it out. And then exhalar. And then they see, oh, now I'm having an X, which is like that one, but that's not like the Mexico. I say in para Mexico, but all of a sudden here I have exhalar. So they're going from that transcription to get the correct spelling. And then at the very end, excarcelar. I was trying to find a word I could use. Excarcelar, so I would have both of them. And I put the theta in right there, because phonetically that's what you would have, excarcelar. And then I ask the question, ¿dónde se pronuncia esta palabra así? ¿En América o en España? So I keep pulling back things so that they don't just learn and then it's there and gone. So constantly I'm reviewing things. Okay? Then, big thing, Spanglish, bad or good. I grew up on the border. I was taught to be a purist. Y no mezclas las lenguas. You just don't mix them. I have had to change the way I feel about Spanglish. Now I've had to come to value what Spanglish is. It's actually addressing who we are. That's what it's doing. And we go back, tomate, who had it also. The conquistadores, when they came here, their Spanish was totally fused with ours, so there was bilingualism there. We go a little bit further in the peninsula, con los moros, okay? Almohada, ¿de dónde vino almohada? Pues de los moros. So I've done a turnabout of far, and social linguistically, I see it very valuable. But once again, I do tell them, we have to know when we can use pochismo or Spanglish. It sounds much better when we say Spanglish. Y les digo, in English it's Spanglish, in español es Spanglish, because that's our reality. So I want them to value the language they have, the language they use. Okay. So then, once again, I invented little things. I look up. This is what I'm spending all my time. Spanish, sí or no? And first I ask them, ¿Cómo te sientes en Spanish? What do you feel about it? ¿Cómo sientes? Should it be used? And some will say, oh, no. I have one girl who's from Brownsville, like I am. She said, no. She just can't stand it. And I don't say anything. She has a right to the way she thinks. But the majority of them will say, bueno, and I say, ¿cómo hablas con tus amigos? Yeah, I do use it. So they have to recognize it. And I tell them, why? Why do you use it? Well, it's because sometimes the words just don't come out in Spanish or they just don't come out in English. And I say, that's true. Very often when I do presentations, I have to start off and say, excuse me, because I'm going to be mixing languages. I can tell you, I do know what it is. I can speak English pure, and I can speak pure Spanish, but there are certain things in which, especially because I'm dealing with the AP Spanish Literature course and methodology for that and articles, we're working with two languages. So some things will come faster than others. Okay? And I do tell my students, I say, okay, if you're going to talk about biology, you're going to talk about chemistry, your words are coming from where? English. But if you're going to talk about what you did with your family or what you ate, hablas en español. O los dos. So they start seeing where it's coming from. Okay. So this was, I looked up Bill Santiago. He has a very funny book out there. Very funny. And I love what he said in his Pardon My Spanglish. And he said, Spanglish is the Reese's peanut butter cup of languages. Two great languages get van great together. I thought that was wonderful. Okay? It's a very funny book. If you have a chance, it's online, so you can get it free. You can see it there. It's a very funny book, but it's presenting a reality of what we are. And then also the fact that Spanish is different depending on where we are. And so then I came back and I do all these things for them to understand the differences. And I asked them, hay que preguntarse si el Spanish que se oye en el A train en Nueva York rumbo al pequeño Cibao sería el mismo que se escucha tomando café en Miami o caminando por el mall in San Antonio. And of course it's different. It's different. I mean, we'll understand each other, but a lot of vocabulary will be different. And so but once again, what I told you, pero para alguien que busca lanzar una campaña publicitaria, because this is in the chapter on the media, en los medios hispanos, es muy importante que sepa a quién se va a dirigir para saber si debe usar Spanglish, o Mexicali de Esperanto, o Bodega Bonix, or Pocho, o lo que más se usa allí. So we even have different terms for Spanish depending on where we are. Okay? But once again, I want them to appreciate what they have, and I want them to also know we have to know when we use each one. Okay. Another thing which I have brought, because I'm just pulling out little pages from what I was writing. La lengua y sus variaciones, okay? Los calcos, the calcs. And why did I go to that? Because all of a sudden we see basketball, and we can use it as basketball, baloncesto. So we're going to see not just the préstamos, the loan words, but now the calcos. Why? Because very often this is where we get, te voy a llamar para atrás. I'll call you back. And a lot of these terms. And so I'm telling you, there's a reason for it. But some are already accepted in formal language. As a matter of fact, I think that baloncesto is probably on its way out now. It's more basketball. But I'm telling you, this is where you're getting that. It's not something that just appeared out of nowhere. There is a reason your English is coming into your Spanish. And you're taking your vocabulary words from Spanish, you're applying them. But you have to know when to use it. And then to make it a little bit more fun, or to sort of express things that they might say, I had something as far as a made-up blog. Okay? I told them it's a blog, but actually I made it up. And it comes up, yo creo que los calcos muestran lo agringado que nos estamos volviendo porque la lengua se muestra la cultura. So it's taking up different perspectives, different positions. And then I tell them, you're going to respond to those blogs. That way they are able to express what they feel, not what they're expecting I want them to feel. They are bringing out their own expression of what being bilingual is. And then another one, because what are the other words that we have? Asina, I hear it all the time in the Valley. It's not a bad word, it's an archaic word. But what is archaic in one place might not be another one. Okay, México, ¿qué usamos? Fierro. Do we say hierro? No, we tend to say fierro. Eh? And even in Spain, they don't say la herretería, they say la ferretería. So all of a sudden, what I did was I picked up words which were considered archaic, but always telling them they're archaic only depending on where they are. Some have totally disappeared, like bisque. We don't see that very much anymore. And I chose some which were a little bit more difficult. La escogencia. We don't have that anymore. But still, you might go into rural areas where they talk about la escogencia. And then I'm telling you, the beauty of this is if someone is using la escogencia, we're looking at another century of our Spanish. So we're looking at a value in what is being used there. El ósculo, that one they love, ósculo. That's the same as a kiss, un beso. So they think it's so funny, ósculo, but that's how it was used. But another one, we use all the time. ¿Qué tanto? ¿Qué tanto cuesta? Well, that's an arcaísmo. It should be cuánto cuesta, but it's still being used, so can I say it's a true archaic word? No, it just depends on the zone. So it's valuing what they know. And then, this is what I was telling you a little while ago, Garcilaso de la Vega, come on, one of the best writers in Spanish, pues en una hora junto me llevaste, me diste, me dejaste, me pusiste. So all of a sudden they're understanding why they say tomaste. But I also tell them, siglo XVI. Is that siglo XXI? No. Okay? And then going on a little bit more, Cordero. Y con tu hielo, with a Y-E-L-O instead of the H-I-E-L-O. So that they're seeing, these are words they were the way they were written before, and it has continued. And then going on to Cervantes. And they see the lanza, they see the C with a cedille. That's where the Z came from. And they start understanding more. And once again, it's appreciation for how they speak. Okay, my time's almost up, so I will hurry. All right, I have, once again, C is one of the most difficult, I think. So I told them, if we have a word like parecer, and I make them pronounce it in Castilian, parecer, which one would be correct? And I left this one up here on purpose, and I've already changed it on my final form for next semester, because it showed me that students are actually looking at this. Because we came up with the last one, traducir, and of course traduco no puede ser, traduzco, no, because remember, jamás, and only S's can change to C's, and then I had traducto, and they said, ma'am, because they call me ma'am most of the time, or maestra, which I think is wonderful, there's something wrong there. And I went back and I said, oh, of course, I've written it totally wrong, I added an extra consonant, but that told me they were looking at what was there. They weren't just glancing over, they were actually analyzing. Okay, and then with a G-U, that's another of our focos, but let me go quickly. Okay, one thing that to me, and this is going into something totally different bilingually, in the chapter on which we were doing the media, one of the first things they did was take an ad. They were supposed to listen to an ad or watch an ad on TV, totally in English. And then they had to adapt it socially and linguistically to an ad that they would see on a Hispanic channel for, I say it could be for bilinguals also, whatever you want, but you have to change it. So this all of a sudden, and these are just two of the samples. I was impressed with what they did. These are just two, I wish I could show you more. But for example, this one took one about the iPod and changed it, but they would change the songs and the music that would come up because they needed to change that to reach my Hispanic audience. This one, mi anuncios de Coca-Cola en un parque de diversiones. No había palabras, so there were no words to the one that she saw. But then she chose a song, Mi Dulce Niña, de Cumbia Kings, So all of a sudden they were understanding this world of the two worlds and how I can address this world. It's more than just taking an ad and making the person speak in Spanish. There has to be more culturally for them to understand. Okay. Okay, one more thing. Throughout, like I said, I'm always re-emphasizing things they have learned. Like on this one, the pronombres. We learn what words are. La clasificación. My students can talk to you about primera conjugación, segunda conjugación, es un verbo, por qué, cuál es su función. We have to speak about language. language. I'm not happy with them not knowing it, because if they go up into the upper division courses, then this kills them. They don't know, and they can't perform how they should, how they're capable of doing it. So, ¿recuerdan la función del pronombre? Escribir explica la función. In another word, with the subjunctive. ¿Recuerdan lo que es una conjunción? Because why talking to them about the conjunciones if they don't, it's meaningless, okay? ¿Recuerdan lo que hacen los adjetivos? So once again, they're continuing doing all of it. Now, another thing, and this goes to the analysis part, and I include this on their quizzes, and once again, this is something that I got from UT, going to one of the workshops. I give them, all the answers are correct. There's not right or wrong, but there's one better answer out of all of them. Like, fabuloso es una palabra que A could be, B could be, C could be. So, they aren't quite sure if it's A, B, or C. They have up to 5 points that they can distribute. Okay? And this way they aren't just looking for the right answer. They're having to distribute what they're doing. So they distribute the points, and they might say, okay, I'm going to give A 1 point, and B 3 points, and C 1 point. Oh no, I'm sure of the answer. I'm going to give it 5 points. No, I'm doubting between these two. Maybe I'll give them a 2 and a 3. So once again, they are not looking for the right answer. There is a better answer, and while they're doing it, they're having to analyze, and they have to come back and figure it out why. La oración del libro interesante contains, and it contains a verb, and all the terminology is there, so it's constantly with them. Okay? And then, the wrong thing. Okay, readings at the very end, to me, very important. For the first chapter, which was about Hispanics, I had from Esmeralda Santiago, cuando era puertorriqueña, and it's from the introduction where she speaks about their experience of coming here, like many of them have, who are a little bit older, and living the two worlds. She's a very well-known writer, and how when she writes, she's maybe writing in one language, but thinking another language. And then the second chapter, which was with the media, I went and got some excerpts from Jorge Ramos, one of his last books, newest books, which is Atravesando Frontera, that once again he speaks about being there. And I had questions like that. What did Ramos want to say with Vivos son casas sin fronteras? Why? Do you think about it? So I come back and I bring their bilingual experience to the reading, not saying, this is Esmeralda Santiago, she's a bilingual. No. Their personal experiences to it. I include grammar, and they have to bring up things about what's a noun, what's a pronoun, and like that in there. But I also want them to read with an identification and a new value for what they already know. And that is it.
Would you take a couple of questions?
Yes.
I have so many, but the one that just caught me toward the end of the presentation, the exercise where you have them recast the commercial that they saw.
Yes.
I'm curious, and it could be because you had to kind of put a lot into a very short presentation. So where would, in a class for heritage native speakers, where would the cultural information come necessarily to divide up the American from the, whether it's Mexicano or Tejano Mexicano?
It's inherent in them.
So it's what they...
It's what they know. It's what they are feeling. So they have to go in, and they have to see this. And like I said, they did an excellent job. And I have all of them because they uploaded them on Canvas. It's from them. I tell them, okay, culturally, what do you think? And I guide them a little bit before. Culturally, what will it be as far as the setting, the people who speak? So I do guide them. I don't just throw them out there. There is a little bit guidance to it.
Right, because I guess my it's not a concern. I mean, I'm curious, actually. What happens when, even within, say, Tejano Mexicano, that you've got someone, say, from Laredo, someone from El Paso, and even between those two,
differences.
They might see, there would be differences, exactly. So do they see one as being, do they just see them as different, or do they see one as better, one is superior, one is...
Well, actually what we did after they did it, because I brought it up, and at the beginning of classes several days, we would bring it up and the person would explain it to them. Right. They didn't seem to have any problems with it.
Good.
They didn't.
I'm glad to hear that.
I'm striving throughout the course, Thomas, for them to value what they know and to respect what others do. Mm-hmm. And so that is one of my main things with it, because I don't know if you grew up like this, and I know this sounds like one of those horror stories, but we were physically punished if we spoke Spanish in school.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
My day was definitely the case.
And I still remember the principal, Mr. Gordon, he would hit the boys right here.
Yep.
And it's a miracle he never really hurt somebody because he hit hard. But we were physically punished.
Absolutely.
So I want them to understand you have this, you have two languages. It's not being correct or incorrect. Spanish is there, it's a reality. Let's work with this reality.
That's terrific. That's terrific. So just one more because I'm curious. So there are, there are definitely pedagogues out there, there are language people out there who would say,
No.
we worry about this meta language takes up too much time of our very meager 50 minutes with the class. Is it worth the time spending talking about the language, why we used it, why did you pick that word, why is it spelled that way, than learning the language?
Yeah.
And I'm going to guess you're going to say that that is learning the language.
To me, that is learning the language. And like I said, I had to set my goal. I set my goal, if I want these students to be successful in upper division courses,
Yes.
they have to speak about the language.
Of course.
And the question came up, in the 612 course where a student said, well, pero si aprende todo esto, he was talking about one of his classmates, ¿va a hablar mejor? Le dije, no, quizás no sepa hablar mejor, pero va a entender por qué.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
it's much easier to get them at the beginning level and introduce
Sure.
all of this to them than at the second level, and much better than at the advanced level. And we see that in our own students as they progress through the lower division courses, even if it's not bilingual, and then go up into upper division, they are at a disadvantage because they can know how to say it, but
They don't know why.
they don't understand what we're talking about in class,
Right.
in the advanced conversation and
Interesting.
grammar.
It's interesting.
So that's what I am trying to do. That's why I said this is focused on what I am thinking about our students in our department.
It's terrific.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to thank you again
You're
so
welcome.
much for doing
You're
this.
welcome.
So I know there are going to be a lot of people out there, especially at the high school level, very interested to see what you had to say.
Yeah, I know there will be people who will be upset about my saying, Spanglish is fine,
No,
but they have to understand where I'm coming
agree.
from.
I grew up with that slogan. It was never enchufa.
See?
Never enchufa. What was that word? I learned it so much later. Yeah.
Yeah.
Terrific. Thank you again.
You're welcome.
So much. Thank you.